your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, and be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and we have a very special guest with us here on the program, and his name is Gary MacDermid. He is a retired lieutenant commander, and I want to thank you so much for joining us on the program. I think the conversation we're going to have is going to be very interesting.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
And the reason I say that is because of your latest book, and it is Set Your Own Goals or Someone Else Will, How to Overcome Self-Limiting Beliefs and Get Things Done. I want to start in an area we will not go into politics. However, I want to share with you something I found out about when it comes to people who are classified, for example, as narcissists or that category. And of course, a lot of folks don't care for those kinds of folks because they seem to always be breaking the rules. But what one of my guests said was the positives are that in spite of the fact that the means justify the ends, they do get things done. They do accomplish things. But you and I would venture, we'd really like to, follow at least the social norms, the rules on how to do things, because we've got certain authorities that don't cotton to us just kind of winging it outside the 9 dots or outside the box. And that's kind of what you're talking about here when you talk about setting your own goals, in the sense that we all want to accomplish certain things in our lives, don't we? I mean, you certainly did and have done so. But a lot of times we're told to do certain things. And I know in the military, and I've never served, I've never been in the military, but what little I know, and this is part of what I kind of like about it, is the fact that you are told what to do, where to go, when to eat, when to sleep, and so on and so forth. That's part of the regiment. And there's also the community, the bonding, if you will. You never leave a man behind, and I've got your 6 and those kinds of things. I love that about the military. I wish we could incorporate that into civilian life a little bit more, without losing our individuality. Talk to us a little bit about who are these other people. So who's the someone who's going to set our goals for us?
Yeah, so that it's an interesting question, because at different points in my life, there's been different people that have influence, and it could be as simple as parents. It could be as simple as when you like in the military for me, I was forced to join out of high school, and it's just like you had mentioned. People tell you where to be, where to go, and that's kind of that trajectory is set for you. So what happens is a lot of times when you're told what to do, whether it's, peer pressure when you're younger, following orders, whether it's in the military or even when I was in corporate America, it takes a little bit of awareness to realize that sometimes there's an alignment challenge where maybe the direction that you're going, if you were actually to reflect and look at where you want to be, or just have some personal consideration as to what you like versus what the direction you're going in, that's a little bit when you start to realize that maybe if something's out of alignment, if the direction that you're going is no longer in line with the way that you believe or the life that you enjoy, then maybe you can look at setting your own goals. And for me, I was really good at achieving goals that were set for me. So it was just connecting the dots to think not only can I achieve goals that were set for me, I can also set some goals for myself. So the awareness is really the first stage. Other people, if you have free time and people know about it, or you're capable, somebody may influence you like, hey, you should do this, you should do that. And then just look at the alignment, become aware. And if it's something that is in line, then go out and do it. It just that awareness part was the hardest part for me.
Hmm. Well, that's one of the reasons why, with my schedule at the radio station, I work 2 days a week from home. And the days that I go into the station, there are times when programmers will say, hey, I can't make it today. Can you run one of my old programs? Sure, no problem. Gives me a free hour to step outside the station and take a walk, grab a bite to eat, whatever. And so when that happens, I don't tell anybody that I have free time. Okay. I keep that to myself because I'm quite busy the other times. So I want to make sure I set aside some time for me and taking care of myself. And that's just one aspect here of, setting goals, of making sure again, the goal being making sure to set aside time for myself, some downtime away, and so forth. But then, of course, there are other times when we want to set goals to accomplish something. I have a tree, an oak tree that has fallen a couple 3 years ago. I'm still cutting it up for firewood. Okay, the log is still laying there, in the same spot where it fell. It's shorter than it was, but I'm not in a rush to accomplish it, and nobody's telling me that I have to finish it, which is also a plus. But you and I both know that there are certain instances where I want to go somewhere. You happen to live in Phoenix, and you want to go, let's say, to Tempe. All right. Well, other people are telling you, yeah, you can go there, but you have to go by this route and at this speed, and so on and so forth, with a vehicle that has been properly maintained, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I don't know, maybe that isn't quite to the degree of someone else setting goals because your goal is to get to Tempe. How you get there and so forth, or maybe there's a shuttle. You could jump on that. Or maybe you're going to take the Deer Valley Airport and fly into the area. Um, but a lot of people have difficulty setting goals, don't they? I mean, it's because so many people have told them what their goals are. I mean, I'm sure you ran into this, or people you've run into who the family has said, you're going to go into this business, kid, when you get out of high school, or you're going to go to college and you're going to become a doctor, a lawyer. And
Right.
they actually do that, even though they don't really want to.
And that was my firsthand experience at a young age, most of my family, grandparents included. When you go to school, you got to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. And I kind of grew up with that, so much so that when I actually I was forced to join the military out of high school because there was no money for college. But along the way, I was still a top performer in that I was awarded a scholarship. After enlisting, 3 years into it, I got accepted for a Seaman Admiral program. And when they gave me the opportunity, they told me that I was going to go to college. I chose engineering mostly just because I was told you got to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer.
Hmm. Well, it's interesting. I guess I was fortunate in that my parents never put any specific labels in that regard on us when we were growing up. They just wanted us to get good grades in school so that we could move on to whatever it was that, we wanted to do. And I'm grateful for that freedom. And it's something that again, I know a lot of people they have not had. I mean, I think about some of the more prominent families in this country in particular who actually have groomed some of their sons to go into politics, for example. I mean, I think of the Rockefellers, for example, or the Kennedys. I'm sure that, for example, the Bush family, same kind of thing. And then, of course, now I'm sure the Trump family is doing the same thing. It's like, yeah, but is that really what this individual really wants to do? You know? Or I don't know, you want to go into the priesthood or become a rabbi, or whatever the case might be. It's very very interesting. What are some of the practices or ideas that you have, especially in your book, Set Your Own Goals or Someone Else Will, to help people to uh, maybe they've already figured out what it is they want to do, but how they get out from under the or someone else will.
So that's really the awareness portion. And then in the book, the way that I've separated it is the reason I even did this to begin with is I had a talk, a 15-minute talk on Amazon Prime, and I basically just did the 5 steps for goal setting. And this was just a way that I had found to achieve goals, whether they were set by me or somebody else. If there was a mission, my military background trained me to achieve the mission. And so I did come up with a framework to set goals and make sure that I achieve them. However, what happened was a lot of folks would ask, well, how do I do it? And if I were to even, I just think back, if I were to give myself that framework 10 or 15 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to execute on it. So I start the book with really the fundamentals, and that's the mindset shifts. And so like what we started talking about, not just the or other people will or someone else will, it's the self-limiting beliefs. So when you're told certain things at a young age, like you must be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, that kind of puts, people do these things for good intentions, right? In general, doctors, lawyers, and engineers are successful, have decent salaries, and so that's a little bit of the backstory. However, if you have enough of these influences put on you, you could take that a step further. When I was growing up, it's the school of hard knocks is what I was put through, or where I was taught things like life isn't a bowl of cherries, there's no such thing as a free lunch, money doesn't grow on trees. If you start looking at all of those concepts and teachings, it really puts a scarcity mindset into you,
Hmm.
which basically builds self-limiting beliefs. So whether that was your experience or someone else, other people have experienced that. Me personally, I had a lot of those built into me and didn't have any clue that that is what happened. When it was like growing up in college and when you go out, I would order, everybody else would order soda or beer at a certain point, and I would order water to save money. And that was because of some of these things. Even though I may have had money to be able to buy a soda, I didn't realize a lot of these self-limiting beliefs kind of took root. So the whole point of the first half of this book is to just identify some of those mindset shifts that I had to make, and the three of them being the visualization. So the way that I frame that is, do you have to see it before you believe it? or do you believe it before you see it? So for me, as an engineer, it was a little bit tough to believe that I could do things like start my own business because there's very few people that I was exposed to that were able to just transition, start their own business, and be successful. So that for me, I had to believe in myself. The second one was the scarcity to abundance that I described, and that was a tough one. How do you undo that natural, like there's fear mindset where you really got to save your money because there's not enough of it, and if you don't save it, then you'll lose it. And so like being able to realize and recognize and embrace abundance for me was a very big step. And then the last one was positioning yourself for success. So after I realized that I believed in myself and that I could do things that I never thought possible, and then I had the abundance mentality where I wasn't afraid and I was able to let myself out there, say yes for things that I wasn't ready for, take opportunities for what they're worth, and then finally realize how to position myself to get more of those opportunities. That's when everything started to connect, and then I was able to execute a simple five-step framework because I was able to believe that I could set some of those stretch goals. And then I had the steps to be able to go and break them down into targets, work backwards, get advice, seek counsel from people that have done it before, work backwards, set targets that end up at the end of the day hitting the goal, and then finding an accountability partner and memorializing everything that I'm doing so that I, in the morning, know what my goal is and I don't lose sight or track of it throughout the day.
You talk about a partner, accountability partner. Almost sounds a little bit like a sponsor in a 12-step program.
Well, there's parallels in most any other program that has a high success rate, and it's just often it's like if we're left to our own devices, sometimes things are a lot harder. But if you have somebody that's like-minded, looking out for you, or wants the best, or wants you to achieve your own goal, and you have some sort of a way to set that up in a positive framework, whether it's 12 step, I'm not as familiar with that, but I know that accountability partner can help in more than one way.
Hmm. We're talking today about basically setting some goals. You can do that and get the heck out from underneath the thumbnail of those who are wanting to set your goals for you. Set your own goals, or someone else will. How to overcome self-limiting beliefs and get things done. My guest, Gary MacDermid, and you are listening to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, along with Gary MacDermid, and I'm curious about you mentioned the scarcity mindset, and a lot of us have been hit by that bug. But part of it has to do with the messages that we do get from outside, and sometimes it's the messages that we tell ourselves from the experiences that we have had. In terms of for example, my father passed away a couple of years ago, and there's a comedian, Steve Martin, who used to he said in one of his albums back in the '70s that when he dies, he's taking it with him. Well, my father did not take it with him. Okay, you can't. It doesn't happen that way. And at the same time, we're also told that the economy is the most important thing in our society. And so we've got to find ways to contribute to the economy. We've got to make sure that, what we're doing is bolstering it and so on and so forth. That this is the land of opportunity and you can make your dreams come true and you can become whatever you want. And the list goes on. But it's almost as if we get double messages sometimes. Because if I do all of that and I, let's say, make $1 million or something, and I think this comes from the scarcity mindset, the government's going to take a big chunk of that. Now, the way I look at it, it's like, let them, because I still have a bigger chunk that, from the million, so I didn't get to keep the whole million. I got 750,000. Okay, great. That's more than I ever saw before. But a lot of people, they look for ways to circumvent the rules. I mentioned that at the front of the program about the social norms and the rules of the game and so forth. And they'll find the loopholes, the ways to get ahead. and they make things that are not really that important the most important. Because many of the conversations I've had on this program, Gary, most of the people, though I understand we need money to put food on the table and a roof over our heads and clothes on our backs and so forth. But man, if you're not happy, if you're not enjoying the life that you are living, I say, what's the point of even living? Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Especially, I think maybe this falls under the category of setting those goals.
Well, really, and that's what you're describing is a lot of what the first half of my book covers, and
Hmm.
it's mindset. So, you covered a lot in different perspectives and different views that are all related to mindset. And when I mentioned having to overcome three mindset shifts, whether that's three for me, five for another person, one for another person, the underlying theme is that mindset and a strong mind, positive thinking, that however you frame it, however you look at it, is one of the underlying characteristics of folks that I've looked at, like mentors that I've had that are successful, more successful than me, that they've had in common. So when I had to, in order for me to be able to unlock the power of being able to set stretch goals and hit them, I had to go through those mindset shifts. I just boiled it down to three. However, if you just take it for what it's worth, a lot of the things that you mentioned have to do with the way that one perceives themselves or the world around them. And if you change that for the person, how they look at the world, how they see themselves, whether it's self-esteem, whether it's mindset, how they also perceive the world around them, once that changes, a lot of other powerful things happen. And for me, the biggest thing was as I started to achieve and become more successful on sort of the trajectory that I set aside for myself, a lot of it being an entrepreneur, then becoming a serial entrepreneur, then acquiring other companies and then consolidating them to package them so that eventually they could be sold. All of those different levels of progression for me, I ended up having to realized that a lot of the folks that influenced me or that I was around, for example, one of the folks that I looked up to that was sort of my first accountability partner and somebody that I looked up that was more successful and further along than me, at a certain point, my success actually went a little bit more, and then I needed to find a new group of people that I could surround myself with that were a little bit more successful. And so, whether it's something that progression or just realizing that there's some folks around me that are a little bit more negative and naysayers, if you will, that can also have an effect. So, all of this is not to say that, it's a couple like I guess the low hanging fruit is that some people say that you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with. For me, when I look at position yourself for success, it's also recognizing when you are achieving something and needing to get to a next level, and the people that got you to where you are right now may not be the same people that get you to the next level. And so having that awareness of the power of mindset, even for me, I feel like I've made a lot of mindset, but I still catch myself sometimes having a self-limiting belief or self-doubt. Like when I say something, I hope that I'll do this, or let's hope that this happens. I'm now around people that will also point that out, like you just said, hope, and they'll correct me, and then I'll realize that, I had a weak moment. So all of that really that we're talking about is boils down to mindset and continuously improving the mind, just like we continuously improve physical strength. The mental strength is also the other half of that. So putting that two together, continuously improving and then seeking and understanding what it takes to get to the next level. That's basically the first half of the book and what we've talked about.
Gary MacDermid is my guest, and he is a retired lieutenant commander with the U.S. Navy. We're glad to have him here as the author of Set Your Own Goals or Someone Else Will. And the website is Gary MacDermid, and that's at GaryMacDermid.com. And this is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan here with Gary MacDermid, and fascinating conversation and talking about how to overcome self-limiting beliefs and get things done. And, that's kind of an irony in one sense, Gary, that we sometimes end up giving ourselves self-limiting beliefs because of some of the experiences. It's not even the messages that we've gotten from parents and teachers and clergy and so on and so forth, and friends and family. Sometimes it's you have an experience and you start to believe that, oh, well, that's the way it is, and that's the way it's always going to be. And um, I think that, and the phrase that you used in terms of the scarcity mindset, I used to use a much longer term to describe exactly the same thing, and I'm trying to use the shorter terms because they they convey the same message in less time. Um, what are some of the techniques that, in addition to having someone alongside to support you in what you're doing, and I talk about that as well in terms of how we have the choice of having certain people in our lives and out. Um, and I know that you're not talking about having a yes person, because sometimes this advisor you talk about, this supporter of yours, may very well, and again, this is not an attempt to be negative, but it's an attempt to say, hey, I think that you might be drifting away from your goal here a little bit. They'll call you on your stuff, right?
Right, right. And there's sometimes it's more than one person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way that I've broken down the actual goal setting, which involves finding these people, is that once you've gotten through the visualization part and you understand what the goal will be, what you're trying to achieve, you can sort of see it, smell it, taste it, like you're very clear on what the goal is. Then the next level, is finding, and it depends on how you're able to find somebody, but seeking counsel. So actually finding somebody that's done it before. Most of the things that we're trying to do have been done to some extent. We're normally not reinventing the wheel. If it's something like losing weight, starting a job, writing a book, becoming your own boss, that sort of thing, those are pretty much have been done. And so finding somebody that's done what you've done at a high level or achieved what you're trying to achieve, that's sort of the first step to be able to seek counsel. If I'm trying to write my first book and I talk to somebody that's available to me that maybe hasn't written a book before, I may not get the best advice. So the first step is really finding somebody that can give you advice from the perspective of having done it. Now, the accountability partner may or may not be that same person, because sometimes you might seek out somebody and they're in high regard, and they're very difficult to get FaceTime. They can't meet with you once a week. So in those instances, you may have to find another accountability partner that you can kind of take that journey with, even if it's somebody not trying to achieve the same goal. Ideally, if you can find somebody that's trying to do the same thing and you prop each other up, that's a lot better, but not everybody can. And so just having somebody, maybe you're helping them, like my accountability partner when I started was trying to do something similar, but it was in a slightly different niche of the industry. So we would hold each other accountable, but it was not the same target.
Mm.
And the motion of being able to set something. So once you seek counsel, you visualize, then you seek counsel, then you work backwards and you set targets. So if it's making offers on real estate to get a revenue target, and you know what your conversion rate is, so you know that you have to make at least X number of offers because of your conversion rate to be able to hit a revenue target, then your accountability partner might make sure that if you were supposed to make one offer a day, 7 days a week, seven offers a week, how many offers did you make? I made my seven. And just that exercise of knowing that, because you sought counsel and somebody told you that to hit the revenue target, they help you work backwards and you determine that seven was the number. Now you have an accountability partner to do that activity every week consistently, that's really start how you start putting that framework in. And then the next thing is to just basically commit to the goal. So, it's one thing. A lot of times people say they want to do something, but they don't actually write it down on paper. They don't actually have a vision board. They don't write down the activity target and then look at it in the morning and then look at it and measure it. So that's putting that all together is what I talk about. And the folks that you mentioned, the accountability partner and or the mentor, that's the description of what we're looking for to make this all work.
And it is also possible that you may become an accountability partner for someone else because you have certain talents and abilities and skills, as well as experience that you're able to pass on to them.
Absolutely. And it really works beautifully if you are both like-minded and you're in doing what you need to do to be accountable, you're also helping somebody else do the same thing.
Yeah, the analogy that I've often heard was that we're all climbing the same ladder. There's someone above you and there's someone below you, and the person above you is hopefully stretching out a hand to help you up, and the person below you, you reach down your hand to help them up. There's only one problem with that that image. You're not holding on to the ladder except by your feet. But that's a side issue that's not relevant to the story. But it's kind of the way we are. We're able to share that. I mean, I've in my career, I've always wanted to share everything I know about this business with someone else, because if I do that, in addition to them being able to advance in their careers, I get to advance and I get to let go of some of the stuff that I was doing because now they're doing it, and I get to do new stuff. And that's really important, I think, too, in the process of being a mentor and being that accountability partner and so forth. That we help each other to progress and to succeed.
Yeah, so take what you said a step further, right? In that image of the ladder, I could almost say there really was never a ladder to begin with, because if you may have thought there was a ladder in the way you're going, but in reality, people are what make the world go around, and so sort of that energy level of being able to help somebody and then somebody also being able to help you, oftentimes, at least in my personal experience, I found that the ladder that I thought was there is really never there to begin with. And just in the interest of the people that I've met to try to do something, often my future or what I've done has been shaped by those people, and it's changed a little bit, but at the same time I'm making progress and improving my skills. So, is there a ladder or is there not a ladder? I think the reality is that we're all at any given time helping somebody achieve their goals, and at the same time, somebody around us is setting our goals for us, or we're setting our goals and we're in alignment with the people around us.
We are talking with the author of Set Your Goal or Someone Else Will, and his name is Gary MacDermid, and this is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, along with the author of, I think it's a fascinating book. You're going to want to get a copy, Set Your Own Goals or Someone Else Will, How to Overcome Self-Limiting Beliefs and Get Things Done. And it's available through, I'm sure, Amazon, but also GaryMacDermid.com. We will be linked to that website as well. You mentioned, obviously, you are a retired lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy. What are some of the lessons that you learned in the Navy that helped you to create this program, if you will, this concept of having people set their own goals and not allowing other people to do so?
Yeah, there's a lot of experience from the Navy, and we cover a lot of that in the book. But uh, the military is kind of a unique organization because We have to put together people that have never worked together quickly all the time to be able to get hard things done. And so, changing duty station, most people in the military change duty stations every couple of years. That means you're basically starting your life over, starting your professional career over every couple of years. And in doing that, a lot of the infrastructure, vision, mission, that's, you hear it in corporate, but it's very strong in the military. So in most of the units, it's something that, no matter what the rank, you should understand the vision and the mission of that unit or that organization or that task group and what we're trying to do, what we're about. And that's the way that I've kind of the Navy planning process or the military planning process is sort of the way that I've came about it and just put some structure because I was so used to having to have structure and how we plan and execute, being a naval officer and also being an engineer, being in the nuclear power program, systems, checklists, procedures, that was kind of forced into me. So what I do is I kind of take that format and I start with the vision, which is visualization. So looking at the end state is what we called it in the military. What are the success criteria? What do we want that to look like? And then working backwards, setting those targets and having the accountability along the way. So in the military, we have a battle rhythm where we look at are we on track, are we not on track, and that battle rhythm may be a set meeting where the team looks at it, leadership looks at it, and that's sort of the way that I've set up the book or the framework is to start with that end set in mind and state in mind, have the what we call, of course, so we call it wargaming in the Navy, where we take a couple of different permutations we call COAs or courses of action of how we could get to where we're going to go. We wargame it, so we battle test it and make sure that we choose the best course of action with the information that we have at the time. And then we execute and we have that battle rhythm to continuously assess the plan. So that's all it is you start with that vision, you work backwards, you have the target milestones that get you from point A to point B, you assess it along the way, and you have people that assist throughout the process.
Hmm. It sounds like a pretty efficient system too, and I'm wondering how important that is, efficiency in the process, uh, because one of the thoughts that came to my mind, and you being an entrepreneur as well, there is this discussion of growth. And especially in large businesses and corporations, they want to make sure they're growing by, I don't know, 3, 5, 10% a year, maybe more. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I'm all for there's always room for improvement, okay? Making things more efficient. But what is with having to constantly grow? Why can't I? I mean, granted, if I was to go to the natural world, a human being, the physical body, our bodies change every 7 years. Who I was 7 years ago is not who I am today, primarily physically, because every cell, they say that the body, all the cells of the body are changed every 7 years or so. But it just seems like there's got to be a point in time where you can kind of just, I don't know, maybe this has to be put in part of the protocols to say, hey, you know what? I'm happy with where I'm at right now. I just want to sit here and just enjoy where I'm at. I don't necessarily want to grow to make another million or, make another 100,000 widgets, to and so forth and so on. What are your thoughts in that regard? Is that part of the scarcity mindset, the poverty mindset?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I guess I never really looked at it in terms of the mindset as more of just to what you just mentioned, right? Physically, at a certain age, the muscles start to atrophy or they start to
Hmm.
get smaller and shrink. So the way I kind of always looked at this, it's not so much that we can't just take some time to rest or we don't have to maybe take some time for ourselves and aren't trying to achieve some big corporate goals. But at the same time, if we aren't continuously using our body or using some of those skills, just like the body could atrophy, that could happen with some of the things that we've got working. So like for me, it may not be like I have to go, get that next, business goal. Maybe it's something that maybe I learned something different. That way I'm always evolving and always using the same skills. It could be another industry. It could be maybe some philanthropy. I do a lot like this whole book, being able to help people transition from the military or corporate like that. That's another sort of chapter, but it's not necessarily a more advanced goal for something I've already done. It's a different goal.
Yeah. And again, it's not about resting on your laurels. You hear the phrase a lot of times, "What have you done for me lately, Gary?" You know, that kind of thing. It's more maybe for a period enjoying the fruits of your labor, enjoying the success. It's like I see these award shows all the time. Just watched one, the AMA awards the other night. And these people, of course, come up there and they accept and they say their speech and so forth. But they go back to work the next day to do their thing, which is great. So maybe that night is the parties and all this kind of stuff, and that's where they enjoy the fruits of their labor. They sort of admire the physical award, whether it be an Oscar or whatever it is. But they also know too that that's just a stepping stone. That there's more maybe that they want to do, more characters they want to portray, or more music they want to create, or whatever the case might be. I mean, I just went through my archives, my friend, and on my computer in my archives, I have over 1,200 interviews. It's like, okay, well, so maybe you should stop there for a little while. But by the same token, it's like, but there's so many people I want to talk to, that kind of thing. And it's to me, it's perplexing on the one hand, but I guess each person really has to make that determination for themselves as to, that period of time where I guess it's kind of like, okay, we did great. We're going on vacation for 2 weeks. And when we get back, we'll pick it up where we left off.
Right, and that's, I guess, the beauty of set your own goals or someone else will, is it really just comes down to everybody's different, and as long as you're in a line with the way that you want to live your life, there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah, yeah. It's very, very interesting, and I'm going to ask you something that I think will apply here as we continue. Retired Lieutenant to Commander Gary MacDermid is my guest author of "Set Your Own Goals or Someone Else Will," and to the website GaryMacDermid.com, and we'll be linked to that website as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and we are having, I think, an interesting conversation. Gary, I want to ask in all of this, because we talk about this aspect of it all the time, where does one's intuition come into play? You've got great protocols set up, great steps set up in the book, and we certainly would encourage people to get a copy and certainly follow those steps. But it's kind of like, well, okay, Gary, it worked for you, but I don't know if I want to do step 3 that way, and I'm going to modify it because I'm just feeling led to modify it. So there's really nothing set in concrete. How important is that intuition in guiding us along the path as let's say we read your book and follow those steps you've laid out for us?
Yeah, intuition is an interesting thing, and the way that I always look at that is in the Navy, when I was in the military, we are told we train a lot. We train, they always say train the way, train the way you fight. But the real thing the take home there is when things get tough or when it's a high stress environment, we default to the level of our training.
Hmm.
So if you train yourself and then you have something where it's stressful or you're not sure what to do, we default to that level of training, and that's just the way that I look at intuition. So my intuition on something that I'm trained is going to be a lot better on something that I'm not trained, but I must rely on that when there's a high stress you can't quite think of it. That's what we have. So I don't look at it any other way in that we just continuously train we try to get better and continuously improve, and then intuition can be a big factor in the decision making process, not the only factor. Obviously, try to surround yourself with a team that you can ask, but at the same time, the level of training and your intuition has improved. You got to rely on that too.
So, in a manner of speaking, it's just another tool that you're using in order to carry out and achieve the goal that you're wanting to achieve.
Absolutely.
Yeah, important distinction. Interesting. Now, I'm going to bring this up just because I think how relevant it is to our conversation. I don't know. You live in Phoenix, that I left because of the heat. That was the main reason. My wife and I, we both lost our jobs in 2005, 2006, and decided, Santa Barbara, why not? It's our hometown. Let's go. And we get some heat here every so often. But is there a particular reason why you chose Phoenix?
Yeah, I mean it actually is when I left the Navy, I was consultant for nuclear power plants, and one of the larger ones in America just so happens to be about an hour west of Phoenix. And I was had a contract with the company that I consulted with after, and that brought me to Phoenix.
Palo Verde, right?
Right, that's right.
Yeah. I have heard zero in regards to Palo Verde and having any problems of any kind. And you would think that if there were problems, boy, that would make national news because there are a lot of people that are concerned about nuclear power and the safety in that regard. And it's not the path we're going, but it sounds to me like it's humming along like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, and that's really the way that there's you know, so many other power plants just like Palo Verde humming along, and I've spent most of my career in nuclear power, supporting nuclear power just by virtue of being an operator. There is a inherently, I mean, there's a lot of, aside from like some of the big ones that you've seen, like disasters. There's so many other plants that operate safely every day with no news.
Yeah. I know that 3 Mile Island, I guess, was our first. Another one that, again, this was because of natural disaster. The Fukushima power plant in Japan was flooded. I don't know the status of it at this point. However, my understanding, Chernobyl, that wasn't natural disaster. That was a whole nother thing. There's a documentary, I guess, or a movie, I guess, made on it. How accurate that was, I don't know. But there's no question. There's lots of conversation when it comes to trying to find safe and reliable forms of providing power to us and our future generations as well. And I've heard a lot of conversation about how yes, solar and wind, and then of course the downsides there, and it's like, let's the innovation hasn't stopped at nuclear power or wind or solar. There's still other forms that people are investigating, and I think that's what's really kind of cool about what we have available is that there are innovators out there who are saying, "Hey, I'd love to be able to find a way to provide and generate electricity and so forth." To the vast population as it grows. I mean, my goodness, we're at 8.5 billion people. Wow. We keep making them, so so we better find other ways as well to provide the electricity if that's what we want. Because I don't know how many people want to go back to the days where before electricity, where we have oil lamps hanging from the wall and and those kinds of things, and back to the horse and buggy or I don't know, the Flintstone car where you pedal.
Right, right.
Was there something about nuclear power or engineering that intrigued you that you chose to go in that direction?
Well, it was really part of the set your own goals. At that point, I was forced to join the military. It was recommended by my father to choose the Navy so I could see the world. Of all the branches, I picked that one for that reason. But the recruiter basically told me I did well on the test to get in, and they because of my score, they kind of directed me into that program. I didn't know anything about it. They made it seem like it was a paradise. They had all the videos of, the school for the nuclear school in Charleston, South Carolina at the time. They had these like beach volleyball courts, and they had this really well put together promotional video to basically direct me to it. And that was I had no clue, no real interest in it, and you just pick it, and then the rest is history.
Right. Well, I mean, we all are going to have different ideas. That's one of the things too that I've always found interesting, when people talk about scarcity of resources or materials or this or whatever it is. And the one thing, the conclusion I've come to is that not everybody wants the same thing, you know? And so there's more than enough to go around. There really is. I even think about the conversations, you living in Arizona there, the desert, and it gets so hot there, water. And people say there's a scarcity of fresh water. It's like, well, if we would just invest in collecting the water that came down after the evaporation process over the ocean, and then the clouds move over the land, and we learn how to collect it, not just in the reservoirs, but even as individuals. I know that there are systems you can actually hook up to your house where you can get the rainwater from your roof down into the gutters and then down into a rain barrel, which is what they used to, that's how they used to collect water. But we don't do that. And so we talk about how there's not enough. And I just sit there going, we got oceans of water, and the process of bringing it to the land, we don't have to spend anything. Just allow the storms to come, but then we do need to do something to collect it. And I even actually came up with a diagram, a way of doing that. You could build one and put it in your backyard, made of PVC and a tarp, and then you'd have a collection device, and the tarp would narrow into a sort of a spigot that would then pour right into the barrel. So you're just collecting the rainwater right out of the sky, have it away from trees so you don't get the leaves in there, that kind of thing. But it's just like the innovation is just, it's right there. And there are so many people that are doing that. As an entrepreneur, what are some of the other things that you have dove into, if you will, that intrigue you, and you've made those kind of things happen? Because I know that entrepreneurialism is a big deal these days, because a lot of people don't want to work for corporations or businesses. They would rather do it themselves.
Right. For me, the way that I've always looked at it, so I was an engineer, and then in entrepreneurship, I basically was able to become, from a nuclear engineer to become a cash flow engineer. So it's just looking at businesses as assets, cash flow producing assets. You can kind of do the design where you're buying real estate, you're buying companies, you're putting the companies together, increasing enterprise value, and then increasing the ability, like the actual value that you could sell it at, and while increasing cash flow along the way. So that's sort of the way that I've taken the engineering that I've learned in the military systems planning, but just applying it to entrepreneurship and business to kind of set those goals and then reverse engineer your way to achieve them, and then knowing what the fastest way to achieve a goal, whether it's a revenue goal or an enterprise value goal, by consolidating businesses. That's something that I'm actively working on right now.
And you're having fun at it, right? I mean, it seems to me that needs to be a part of the whole goal setting thing is, yeah, I know too, as I said, I think earlier about how, yeah, we do need money to buy the things that we need, a roof over the head and clothing and food and so forth. But it seems to me that you need to somehow figure out how to incorporate um, an enjoyment of what you're doing while you are putting a roof over your head and food on the table and so forth.
Absolutely. It's got to be in alignment, and that's the concept to set your own goals is if what you're doing isn't aligned with what you would like to do and how you want to feel, then you should be having fun.
Hmm. Cash flow engineer. I like that. Now, to me, the operative word there is flow. A lot of people want to hold on to everything. Hence, we have, the billionaires, and I know there's we're not far away from a trillionaire, and I'm not criticizing him. Don't get me wrong, but it's been described that money is is energy, and that it needs to flow. You know that as well as anybody else. As an electrical engineer, that you cannot just store the power, let's say, in a battery, because eventually, if I'm correct, because I don't know that much about electricity and so forth or engineering, that eventually, if you had a battery that was fully charged, manufactured today and fully charged, and you just let it sit, it would eventually lose its charge, wouldn't it? So,
I learned that the first time I went on a deployment for several months, and then the car didn't start.
oh no. So you've got to let the money flow in one sense. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a nest egg or a bank account with, two, three, four, five zeros or six or whatever before the decimal. But at the same time, it's designed to flow. It comes in and goes out. And that's this to me is part of that whole mindset shift. Instead of grumbling over, oh, I got to pay the electric bill and the phone bill, and I got to put gas in the car, and that's going to be blah, 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 blah. Hey, thank you. I am grateful that I have the money to pay the phone bill and the electric bill and put gas in the car and put the food on the table. And even if I wind up with zero, but let's just say right before the next payday, so what? I've got food and clothing and shelter and gas and so forth. And to me, that's part of that whole mindset shift, isn't it?
100%. That right there
Gratitude.
embodies the mindset shift. And once you made that mindset shift, then you could argue that you just flow and everything else comes into place.
Yeah. These interviews tend to flow. They have a life of their own. The universe asks the questions. I'm just along for the ride. I consider myself the universe mouthpiece, so to speak. Even though I have some of my own questions, it's kind of like the intuition. I get these promptings of a question. One interview, I kept getting this prompting, and I'm going inside. I'm going, no, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. And it wouldn't go away. So I didn't stop the interview, but I stopped and said, I'm getting this question, and I'm going to ask the question because it won't go away. And as soon as I ask it, it'll go away. And I did. And it actually took us in a really great direction in that context. So that's why I put it in those areas there. Um, I'm going to encourage people to go to your website once again and get a copy of your book. It's Gary MacDermid, and MacDermid.com. That is the website. And once again, the title of his book is hope that you will go get a copy of it. Set your own goals or someone else will. How to overcome self-limiting beliefs and get things done here on Tell Me Your Story. Gary MacDermid has been my guest. His book, since March of 25, is out available for you to get a copy of. I'm sure it's available on Amazon, right, Gary?
Right, and setyourgoalsbook.com.
Set your goal. Okay, then we'll do that one too. Setyourgoalsbook.com. Is it available in Audible yet?
I have to record it, so not quite yet.
All right. I hope that people will get a copy. I do have three final questions that I ask all of my guests before I let you go. And again, I thank you for giving us so much time here on the program discussing your book and the work that you're doing to try to help people not only to set goals, but I do believe that in turn it also helps to make them successful at what it is that they want to do. So thank you for being a part of what we're doing here.
Thank you for having me.
Three final questions that I will ask you that I ask all of my guests. The first one is, who is Gary MacDermid?
So, Gary MacDermid, as we covered, retired naval officer, veteran entrepreneur, cash flow engineer, and I'm really just my mindset is just I like solving problems, and if there are bigger problems that I can solve and add value to the world, that's where I want to be spending most of my time.
Wonderful. What gets you up in the morning?
I'm just excited every day as an opportunity to do something better, to learn, to improve, and I have a lot of goals that I've already set for myself, and every day is another step on the ladder to be able to be one step closer to achieving something great.
And finally, what was your best day?
It's that's an interesting question, because the best day changes with every coming day. One of the best days, I guess, for me was when I graduated boot camp in the Navy. It was a very powerful day, as being a part of something bigger, and also finally taking that first step in a new journey and actually having it memorialized. Graduating, becoming a recruit to transitioning to an actual Navy sailor for me, and the meaning that it has with the country, our country, and everyone that had been before me. That was what I reflect on as a turning point in the best day.
Hmm. Well, thank you again for joining us here on the program, and much success to you with the book. Set your own goals, or someone else will. We look forward to touching base with you again down the road and see how things are going.
That would be great, and thank you. Really enjoyed the opportunity to be on the show today, and look forward to more.
Absolutely. And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, video cast, love Talal. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for letting me be in your life. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.